Duchess's Dinner Party, a podcast all about hit social deduction game Blood on the Clock Tower and the distinguished opinions of its players. Joining myself, Mia Gwen, in visiting the Duchess tonight, my first guest has a black belt in karate. It's Emma. Please go ahead and introduce yourself and where people might know you from.
Hi, my name's Emma. You may know me from hosting TPI's Sunday stream every Sunday night in the United States times, which is other times in other time zones. I'm too lazy to remember. I also have a podcast called Grim Scenarios, and I play on several streams from time to time. You can also find me live in the Phoenix, Arizona Blood on the Clock Tower scene, or at various conventions across the world.
My second guest is fortunate enough to have their favourite Clock Tower character also be the character that they have been the most. It's Navean. Please go ahead and introduce yourself and where people might know you from.
Hello. You probably know me from CTBOTC. We are a long-running Clock Tower stream on Twitch. We've been playing at 8 p.m. Eastern on Friday nights for about 5 years, almost 6 years now, actually. And you can also find me occasionally at some of the conventions, albeit mostly the ones in the United States.
Lovely. It's delightful to have you both here. Emma, would you like to share your opinion first?
Yeah, the opinion I wanted to present was that Trouble Brewing characters should mostly stay on Trouble Brewing. This is an opinion I've had for a while. I think it's true about all the characters of all the base 3 scripts to a degree, but I think everyone knows this about BMR, and I think the Sex and Violets characters... Well, we don't have to talk about Sex and Violets, but I think people think the Trouble Brewing characters are more portable than they are, and I disagree, so I wanted to present that opinion. I think the Trouble Brewing characters are far more dependent and interlocking with each other than they might come off at first glance. It has to do with how the script was created and designed, I think, to be an interlocking whole, rather than experimental characters were much more designed to work with everything. And I think people tend not to notice just how much for example, empath relies on the existences of recluses, spies, drunks, poisoners, and imps to maintain its balance, and same for the fortune teller. I think they don't recognize how much librarian relies on those same suite of misinformation characters, and how much the washerwoman... I think people actually do realize about the washerwoman, because you see more of the more flexible versions of the washerwoman, like the steward and Pixie on custom scripts. Yeah, but that's basically the opinion I wanted to share. I think people too frequently bring these characters off onto custom scripts, where they end up sort of being too powerful for what they're supposed to be doing on both teams. Yeah.
Okay. I've got 2 things I immediately want to say in response to that. Firstly, your point about Washerwoman being replaced with Steward and Pixie. I think that people potentially see those roles as more fun characters, if that makes sense. I don't think it's a case of people being like, the Washerwoman is strong. I think it's more a case of people just being like, this is a more fun character.
I agree with that to a degree. But I don't think it's true that the Steward is particularly more fun. I think the Pixie, lots of people find to be more fun, and the Pixie is unsurprisingly near the top of all the custom character lists. But I think, like, the Washerwoman is a disgustingly powerful character without the benefit of a spy. It's a character that starts the game confirming 2 good players as good, and without the spy, evil can't really do that, and there's no real downside to the Washerwoman. The other character in all of Blood on the Clock Tower that does this is effectively the Grandmother, and the Grandmother has, of course, a severe downside of evil can accelerate the game using the Grandmother, whereas the Washerwoman has no such downside. It's really balanced around the fact that it's not that hard for evil to bluff due to the existence of spies, and it's relatively easy for its information to be wrong due to the existence of drunks and poisoners. And I think when you take it out of that context of Trouble Brewing, with specifically all 3 of those reasons for you either to not trust the Washerwoman, or for evil to fake it, or for the Washerwoman to fail, you end up with a character that essentially does too much, whereas the Steward and Pixie aren't doing too much.
Sure. I guess my second point as well is that I would assume that certainly some of the things that you said that sort of balance the power level of the characters are present on other scripts. I think the Poisoner is like the most popular minion on custom scripts. I don't have the stats in front of me right now, but it's like drunkenness and poisoning on a script is one of the things that is just, if your script doesn't have this, you've gone wrong somewhere, almost script building advice. So I feel like those would be present.
Unless you're looking to specifically make a Fibbin script, which more people should do. But if you're making a Fibbin script, don't put drunkenness and poisoning on it.
Sorry, I was just going to disagree with Navean about putting drunkenness and poisoning on a Fibbin, but that's off topic.
That is. Maybe I could come back on the podcast and we'll talk about it some other time.
I mean, I don't disagree that, like, the poisoner is commonly put on custom scripts. I disagree that it should be on a lot of custom scripts where it is. I think you find a lot of custom scripts where the poisoner is frequently busted in ways it's not on Trouble Brewing. Trouble Brewing has lots of opportunities for the poisoner to miss on a regular basis. Lots of opportunities for the poisoner's poisoning to not matter that much. You see poisoner on a common example of, I think, scripts where you see poisoner and it's just doing way too much are Leviathan scripts, where the poisoner is hanging out essentially unkillable, because everyone's essentially unkillable in Leviathan, completely demolishing any attempt good can do to create a coherent solve, because literally everything can just be, well, maybe that's poisoned sometimes. And I think there's lots of townsfolk that aren't Trouble Brewing townsfolk where a single night of intermittent, non-traceable poisoning can do a lot more damage than it can be done on TB. If you think of, like, say, the Flower Girl versus the Poisoner compared to the Fortune Teller versus the Poisoner, the Flower Girl is really depending on having multiple nights of information that can be collated together in a coherent way, where the Poisoner hits the Flower Girl once and that entirely breaks. Whereas the Fortune Teller, each of their nights of information is discrete enough where the Poisoner can do a reasonable amount of damage without completely destroying the Fortune Teller, which I think is different from the Flower Girl, if just in the category of demon detectors. So I don't think it saves Trouble Brewing characters where you can say, oh, well, they can also be on the script with the Poisoner, because a lot of the other townsfolk on scripts with the Poisoner is too damaging to be fair.
Oh, that's not something I considered. I see the argument there.
I can agree that there are a lot of instances in custom scripts where Poisoner is ultimately too damaging, but I also think that there are spaces in the Clock Tower community that take that concept to such an extreme that they practically want to avoid Poisoner on like any and every custom, and I actually don't think it's as egregious as a lot of people feel that it is. It's not as you know, Emma has pointed out, it's not as balanced as it is on Trouble Brewing, where Poisoner was developed within the entire ecosystem of the script. And you know, as like, I also agree, if Poisoner on Leviathan scripts is kind of a miserable experience, and you should go for different types of poisoning. Like, Leviathan still needs misinformation; it should just be elsewhere. But there's some people who just have this really vitriolic response to seeing Poisoner on a custom, and it's like, most of the time it's not that bad. It's fine.
I also want to ask Emma, is it wrong for characters to be powerful?
It's not wrong, but is this case, I think, that there was once some language used, it was when the Balloonist was changing, where TPI gave an official statement that, like, the goal of townsfolk was to be somewhat useful most of the time. And, like, let's take the Fortune Teller. The Fortune Teller is a character I really love using as an example to compare to all other townsfolk in all other situations. Like, the Fortune Teller in the Trouble Brewing ecosystem is given the following reasons their information might look or appear wrong. The existence of the Red Herring, the existence of the Recluse, the existence of the Scarlet Woman, the existence of the Poisoner, the existence of the Drunk, the existence of the Imp's ability to Star Pass. That is 6, I believe? I counted right? Right? Yeah, so 6 reasons for the Fortune Teller's information to be wrong inherent on Trouble. And several of those characters, like, are almost explicitly there to counterbalance the Fortune Teller. Like, the Recluse does a little bit of damage to the Investigator and the Empath, but it's much harder for them to damage the Investigator and the Empath. It's much rarer for them to truly damage the Investigator or the Empath. You put the Fortune Teller on a script that has, instead of all 6 of those pieces of information, a non-mobile demon, which I see frequently with the Fortune Teller, no Recluse, no Drunk, and maybe 1 possible source of poisoning. And we've gone from, like, 6 reasons for the Fortune Teller's information to be wrong or misleading, down to 2. And this Fortune Teller unsurprisingly, scales up in power. I see a lot of custom scripts where I'm like, there's a relatively famous custom script that I won't name because I don't want to like call anyone out directly, where like my essential view if I'm playing and running this script is every time I'm like, well, if I'm running the script, the fortune teller's not going in the bag because it's doing way too much and it's not fair to the evil team on this script. And if I'm playing the script, I'm like, oh god, I hope there's no fortune teller in play because I've never seen this script not be a miserable experience for the evil team with the fortune teller in play. And I don't want a single townsfolk to have that level of effect on a script. And the fortune teller can very easily do it if you go down from the 6 pieces of anti-fortune teller tech that Trouble Brewing has to the 2 or 1 that appear on lots of custom scripts. And I'm not saying never put the fortune teller on a custom script. I'm not saying never put TB characters on custom scripts. I think that's like hyperbolic and overkill. I think people assume that these characters are, because they're from the quote-unquote beginner script, the quote-unquote introductory script, because TB is so inherently balanced, they don't really think through the ways that these characters function, the ways that these characters do their job, the ways these characters are balanced within the scope of a game of Trouble Brewing. And they think it can just be like, oh yeah, here's a fortune teller. And the frequent answer is, yeah, hope that's not in the bag. The evil team is fucked if it is.
Okay, yeah. I also want to ask then, you've used the fortune teller, the empath, the washwoman as examples a lot here. Are there any TB characters that you think are more portable or are more flexible? Is, for example, the Mayor more flexible? Is the Ravenkeeper more flexible? Is the Virgin more flexible?
The Virgin the Virgin needs the spy on the drug. Scripts without it's very inflexible. I would say with the Mayor is actually, I think, relatively decently flexible for a Trouble. I would say the Butler is extremely flexible, and not just because I'm biased towards the Butler. It's outsider that sort of nails the sweet spot for an outsider where it's somewhat annoying, but you can overcome it without that much thought, which is sort of the sweet spot for an outsider that you don't have to think about before putting on menu. Scarlet Woman, I think, is decently mobile. I think it's a relatively mobile minion that you can generally put on scripts without much concern. And the Imp is generally, I think, pretty versatile. I would say Recluse and Drunk, I don't think they're not versatile, but I think people think they're more versatile than they are. And
Whoa. I won't take this Recluse slander. Recluse belongs on every script. We know this from every time I do script notes.
And I respect that opinion, but I think there's lots of townsfolk that the Recluse is more damaging than it should be. It's more like...
Yeah, it can be.
Whenever I see like a Recluse on like a Town Crier or Flower Girl script, it just seems like it's not fun for the Recluse Fest to sit there being like, I can't nominate, I can't vote.
I definitely agree with Flower Girl that it's like pretty rough. I think it's most of the time it's okay with Town Crier because there are other players in the game who can nominate for you in the early game, and by the time the late game has come around, it's probably less important to sort out your Town Crier information. Like, it's already been sorted, or at this point you just need good players to nominate regardless. But there's also some characters that like a Recluse kind of doesn't really do anything to either, so you can end up with custom scripts where either a Recluse is too damaging or it has nothing to affect at all, in which case it's just a blank outsider that's like not... It's just a player who sat there.
Like, and I like all these characters. There's only one character on Trouble Brewing I don't particularly like, and even that, it's just a personal playstyle thing. I think it does important things for Trouble Brewing and important things for Clock Tower in general. It's just not how I want to play the game.
Is it the character we both dislike?
If
claiming it, at least?
Yeah, it's the Saint. I simply do not enjoy the Saint. I do not enjoy the play pattern of the Saint. But I think it's doing important things for the script, and I think it's doing important things for how a lot of people feel more comfortable playing than me, and I think that's fine. It's just not really a character I'm ever excited to draw. That's another one that I think is decently versatile. I think its only truly terrible interaction is Fengu, though I do continue to see Saint and Fengu on so many scripts together, and I'm like, why would you do this?
I I have a question about that. What is functionally different for Saint Fangu than, for example, Evil Team bluffing Saint and the Imp Star passes to that player?
The functional difference, I think, is the incentive for the Saint against a Fangu. The Saint Fangu interaction puts two untenable impulses on the Saint at the same time, where the game is saying you can never admit you're an outsider, but also saying, by the way, you have to admit you're an outsider, because the Saint sort of has to admit they're an outsider.
They have to admit it if they're like being nominated or about to be executed, to be fair. But I can certainly agree that the level of pressure is significantly higher on that individual player, and I can see why that would be not a fun thing for somebody, especially somebody who already kind of dislikes the play pattern of Saint. It's not helpful for somebody who's in that situation for sure.
Yeah, but I see players who don't have my strong distaste for the same play pattern, have really unfun games when they draw Saint on Fangu scripts. The cross pressure is a little bit too much for what an outsider should be doing.
That's fair. I do want to give a little bit of pushback against the portability of Mare, though. I think it's also a bit less versatile than some people initially think it is. Like, for one thing, Mare can basically never go with anything that has like death manipulation. Because the mare needs specifically a final 3 to get their mare win. And if you have a game where your final day might be final 5 or final 4, they're never going to be able to go for it. And you also need to be really careful about the sources of drunkenness and poisoning with mare. There's poisoner and there's drunk on Trouble Brewing, and that's also really important. Like, mare does need reasons that it might not be sober and healthy on a final day. Otherwise, it's just like potentially oppressive, right? It's not fun to be an evil team with a mare that everybody's just like, let's go for the mare win, and you had not even a chance to disable it, and also not even a chance to argue that it might be disabled, which is not fun or interesting. So it needs some amount of drunkenness and poisoning, but it has a threshold that is very fine, and custom scripts often aren't hitting that threshold. I've been the mayor on a script that had a puka and a poisoner on it, and we solved like halfway through the game that both of those roles were in play. And so as a mayor, I was just sat there like immediately going, okay, I guess we're not going for the mayor win ever, because there's 2 sources of, poisoning that are quite likely to be alive at the end of the game. And, like if we get to a final 3, one of them is definitely alive. And I can't remember if there was more than that, but like it was just so much that it was just disheartening to be the mayor. So it is a bit more portable than some other roles. I can agree that like fortune teller is one of the most egregious roles that gets ported onto customs a lot. But Mare's just, it's not quite as portable as I think it is at first glance.
Yeah, I would agree with most of what you said there. I sort of always forget about death manipulation, because my official opinion on BMR characters is there is...
They belong on BMR.
There's 25 BMR characters, and they basically all require all the other 24 of them to function appropriately. And then once you've eliminated the 25 BMR characters, there's just not a lot of death manipulation left.
Yeah, fair.
But yeah, and I'm not, saying never put TB characters in your custom scripts. But I think people just are a little careless about it. They're not really looking at... When you have characters that are designed in the ether, like the experimental characters are supposedly all being tried to balance with every other clock tower in existence, character in existence, I think they end up being much more flexible on custom scripts. When you have all 3 of the base 3 scripts, these characters were all designed to be balanced on the assumption of the other 24 characters on their script. And I think people have started to come around to realizing that on BMR, but I think Trouble Brewing is the one where people really need to look into, okay, what are the balance mechanisms inherent to Trouble Brewing for all these characters, and how am I replicating that on my custom script, and have I replicated that in a way that that lets the script still breathe with these characters, or does twisting what I've put on to balance out these characters render the situation so terrible that I would have just be better giving up and putting the TB character on the script.
One final question on this opinion. How versatile do you think the chef is? Because I cannot stand the recluse misregistering for chef numbers. I hate it. like whenever a recluse comes out and there's a chef 1 or a chef 2, everyone goes, we're killing the recluse neighbors. And I really despise that in a sense of evil have done nothing wrong there apart from where they were sat. I guess you can make an argument for the spy here, but I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Chef is a very strong townsfolk.
That's true, yeah.
I tend not to misregister the recluse to the chef, but I think it is one of those things a storyteller has to do some of the time so that the evil team has that argument in their back pocket if they need it. And I think, like, there are ways on custom scripts to mimic that without a recluse, but I think it largely involves the bounty hunter, and the bounty hunter is a townsfolk with a whole another slew of problems.
Yeah, I think that storytellers do need to have the recluse increase a chef number sometimes, but they shouldn't be doing that like without any thought behind it, right? You shouldn't just say, oh, an evil is next to a recluse. Let's just flip a coin on whether the recluse registers to the chef here or not. They should be looking at essentially where all of the tokens have fallen and whether it makes sense in this moment, whether you think it might actually be damaging in this moment to give the chef a higher number as a result. Because there are seating arrangements where the answer to that is going to be yes, and there are seating arrangements where the answer to that is going to be no. And that should be what is helping you as a storyteller determine the variability in your chef recluse. What was it? What did they used to call it? Chef Cluse Marmite Land or something like that. Yeah, so just like have some intentionality behind when you're doing that, but make sure that you are doing that sometimes because it shouldn't be so metaable by your players that they can definitely determine that you either A, have always done that and so you always kill recluse neighbors, or B, have never done that so you never kill recluse neighbors. Neither of those are like healthy metas that you should have your players be in. Is that storytellers should kill pretty aggressively when they are making their lil monster kills. So what I mean by aggressively is that in a lot of lil monster games, you see storytellers go for these incredibly neutral kills as their first kills in the game. They will go for you start knowing rolls, spent once per games, neutral outsider kills. I don't like this. I really think that this is so metaable by players that a lot of times, based on the first night's kill, well, technically the second night's kill, but the first kill in the game, they'll just immediately go, oh, I think it's a little monster game. And a lot of the times they'll just be right because storytellers, they essentially, the psychological reason for this is that they feel bad. They don't want to take out a player who hasn't really had any opportunity to do much with their ability in the game yet. You know, you don't want to take out an unspent once per game roll because they haven't done anything. You don't want to take out the ongoing information rolls because they may not have done anything yet, or they got one night's of info, which is not very much and not going to have much impact. And as much as the game has this mindset of death is not the end, and that's a really good and important part of the game, it still can suck sometimes to be a player who your ability didn't do anything in the game. We all get over that, of course. We continue playing. We do other things in the game that aren't related to our ability that allow us to still play and have fun. But there is something that draws a lot of people to, like, you know, they want to have agency. They want to have impact with their own ability and not just be like, I'm just here to solve or whatever. So storytellers, they don't want to sort of rob people of that opportunity. And because you know the grimoire, it feels different than when, for example, the evil team makes a good deduction or gets a lucky snipe or whatever and takes out one of those rolls themselves, because they don't have the grim, probably. They maybe have a grim peeker, but like they're also on a team, whereas the storyteller is meant to be a neutral party. But I think we shouldn't confuse neutral party with make neutral kills when they are in your hands. So sometimes in a little monster game, yeah, your first kill can be something that's a little more neutral and less impactful. But sometimes you should be killing off your strong information rolls. Kill the Undertaker before they get information. That happens on Trouble Brewing sometimes. Kill your Flower Girl before they get to find out anything about any of the votes, or they get only one day's information where everybody voted. Kill them. It's fine. These will help mimic other demons better, and it will help balance your games overall a little bit better. One of the problems as well, when I say kill more aggressively, I also mean you should kill evils probably a little earlier than you might have a feeling to do. This is also designed on the idea that storytellers sort of feel a little bad about killing evils, because in a quote normal demon game unquote, most of the time, most of those demons won't be killing their minions in the night. There are some reasons for evil to die in the night, and some people might utilize them, but a lot of people don't, even when they are available. And a lot of people really don't if they don't have one of those abilities that incentivizes, for example, killing a minion like a Vigor Mortis, or killing yourself like an imp. So they won't be killing evils in the night. But it's really important to remember that Lil Monsta is not a normal demon. It has movability and variability that other demons don't, that is really hard to track. And your balance point is that you have control as a storyteller of the kills. And some of those kills should be evil players. If you don't do this early, you can run into the problem where, because you've also left all of these strong, good information rolls alive, they've solved who the evil team is. And when you kill evils in the night when the good team has solved, you might at the end of the game be handing a team a win. Whereas if you leave multiple evils alive in the final 3, now good has, like, for example, a 50-50 chance without any way of determining which player is now holding the baby, even though they've solved the entire evil team. And that kind of sucks for them, and it's not really fair. You can try to make the argument of, well, good should have killed off evil earlier, but I would like to make it a point that if good could kill off evil teams super early in the game, it would not be fun to be evil ever. The game is designed around the essentially like the good team not being able to solve exactly who every evil team member is until it's a little too late in the game to potentially deal with everybody. So I think it's unfair to sort of punish the good team for the game being designed in a way to not be oppressive to the evil team early on. And it's, so like if you kill your evils earlier, they gain some social trust. So whatever they're bluffing, great. Lots of people might see them as good when you've killed them quite early in the game. And B, you don't run into the problem where like the good team has now solved down to the evil team, and your final kill on the final night is going to determine which team wins. So yeah, kill more aggressively into both good and evil.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that. I would go further and say this is also advice that applies to the Yagababble, the Oho, the Mayor, the Gossip.
Yeah, sure. Anything the storyteller controls the kills, this can apply to. Absolutely.
Nothing is more annoying to me as a storyteller or a player than when someone is like, oh, I trust the Mayor because the washerwoman died night 2, and that feels like a Mayor bounce to me. And I'm like, if something feels like a Mayor bounce to you, to your players, you are not Mayor bouncing correctly.
I agree. That's so common to hear, and I'm like, oh, that's so annoying.
And it's absolutely the same for Little Monsta. Now, there's I could do things like, alright, I'll kill the powerful ongoing information if they've been too public and the evil team is likely to know who they are, as my heuristic of when to kill early, but even that is silly. We've all been powerful townsfolk with recurring information who don't tell anyone our roll night 2 and get sniped by the evil team who just kills randomly. This is part of the game, and Little Monsta shouldn't be removing that from the game. I tend to think Little Monsta is a relatively weak demon because of the lack of kill control and because of the lack of stable bluffs. But
oh, yeah.
It's certainly a weak demon when it doesn't get to control who dies, doesn't get stable bluffs, and also the storyteller is doing the kills in an explicitly pro-good manner, which is what neutral kills tend to be. If the storyteller is killing these spent rolls, first of all, it's confirmatory to those spent rolls and starts knowing rolls are frequently more powerful than ongoing information rolls in secret ways, especially when they die early.
Yes. it's why they only get information once in the game, right? It's really important to remember that roles that get information only once in the game, it's because the information is too strong to have happened more than once.
Yeah. And, like, when you kill them off immediately, it then confirms this overly strong information. And I'm genuinely sorry you didn't get to solve your amnesiac ability, or you didn't get to test your tea lady neighbors, or you had a really fun idea of what you were going to ask on your artist question on Final 5. Just like in any other game, in a Little Monster game, sometimes that won't happen for you. And boo-hoo.
Yep.
Grow up a little bit.
Yeah, I do. I think that unfortunately, like the underlying feelings for why low monster kills often happen the way that they do, and end up being bad for both teams. The underlying feelings are understandable, and they're coming from a good place, right? Like you don't want to hurt the players on the good team too much and take away their fun in the game, so you don't want to kill them. And you don't want to make the evil team feel like, they've been unfairly targeted when they haven't been sussed out. So you don't want to kill them either. And you end up making just like the blandest kills that end up being actually bad for both teams, but especially for the evil team by the end of the game. Or for the good team if you end up leaving those two evil players who have been solved alive, and then you feel bad because you've king made.
I wanted to push back on the idea that Little Monster is a weak demon. I strongly disagree with this. Fundamentally, from a position, the ability of minions is to obfuscate the demon. So the obvious example is the Poisoner. Scarlet Woman obfuscates a demon. Things like that. And I think that third minion ability is a massive boon for the evil team, that you almost need to balance it out because good need more time to deal with that third minion ability that exists by the virtue of Little Monster. So I think it's actually quite a strong demon, and I think that I understand killing so that players don't go, that player died or the washwoman died, it must be a Little Monster game. But I also think that it's okay to leave the more powerful characters alive because there is that third minion ability that will get in the way of their information still.
I think that depends on what minions are actually in play, and what minion abilities are in play can like you should let that have an impact on who you're killing, like your kill choices as a storyteller. It's okay to let that impact that, because you do have a point that, like, yeah, there's an extra minion ability in play and it might be messing with town, but maybe it's done nothing. Maybe it's a poisoner who keeps missing, or and you think that they're going to continue to miss throughout the game because of what they believe about the game state or whatever. So you can let those things impact you. I think that maybe it would be a little bit more accurate to say that Lil Monsta is a precarious demon, because that early game, Emma's right, like, you don't have stable bluffs. I've certainly seen Lil Monsta games that end up getting tanked early because all of the minions end up in these like really nasty double claims, and they've all lost the social battle with who they've been pitted against, and it's it's sad. So it's definitely a bit unstable and on its feet in the early part of the game, but once a player can get established, like, then maybe it's a bit stronger because of that movability, and more so if multiple minions are able to do that. So I don't know, maybe just precarious is a better descriptor for it than weak.
I generally think that kill agency is worth far more than a minion ability. I think evil choosing who dies at night is much more useful to evil than getting an extra minion ability. Because of the ability to cultivate frames, because of the ability to keep your full evil team alive unless there's a good reason, a pro-evil reason for them to die. I think kill agency is... Evil needs to be getting a lot to give up kill agency is my general view, and I don't think Little Monster quite makes the cut. Especially if storytellers are going to make sort of more quote-unquote neutral, as what I think Navean called them. I would call them pro-good kills with Little Monster.
Yeah, maybe I should call them milquetoast instead of neutral. I agree that they're pro-good.
Nothing terrifies me more as evil as learning that I've accidentally mistakenly killed the washwoman confirming the fortune teller on night 2 of a Trouble Brewing game. But if I do that, at least it's my choice, my mistake, which I can then deal with. If the storyteller has done that to me, it's just sort of like, okay, thanks. Um, Points for you, I guess. Like, kill agency that's the, like, figuring out how to frame effectively is so much of the game for evil to have a fair chance at winning. Like, nothing is more crushing than when the storyteller kills your frame. And nothing feels worse as a storyteller when you realize you did that because you didn't happen to know who evil was framing correctly. I guess that's just why I have always put Little Monster on. A demon I would rather not be. Like, it feels just to me like losing my kill agency is giving up way more than an extra minion ability can get, because frankly, Little Monster scripts tend to have slightly louder minions than non-Little Monster scripts. So, and the slightly louder minions tend to be slightly weaker. Like, if you could tell me every time my Little Monster game was going to be Poisoner, Scarlet Woman, Mizephiles, I would tell you, okay, that's an extremely strong demon. But also, there's lots of reasons why people don't like Little Monster, with Mizephiles in particular. And if you told me every time a Little Monster game was going to be Serenovus, Fearmonger, and Harpy, which I think are 3 far more common minions to see on Little Monster scripts, I'm just going to tell you, those are all minions that can have do some powerful things occasionally. They ain't come close to making up for the lack of me being able to choose who dies at night.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think that in general, for all of the storyteller kill, especially the demons, but some of the other storyteller kill choices too, it's really important to be very plugged into the game and to have an idea of what worlds the evil team is pushing. If you're not really paying attention, that's how you end up killing the frame jobs, right? Because you weren't listening quite well enough to what the evil team was trying to push, either in private or in public. This is part of why, like, the storyteller kill choices are some of the hardest choices in the game, and as a result, some of the hardest demons to run in the game. Like, they're deceptively simple, right? You just pick a player and they die at night, and that's that. It's mechanically very easy to run, but in terms of making some like good kill choices that ends up being like balanced for both teams, it's really difficult to do. But part of the way you do it is just listening carefully to what the evil team is pushing, and killing in ways that support that world, that keeps those worlds alive. Because if you kill off all of their frame targets, you're winning the game for good. I think one of the things that can maybe help you is to think like a demon, but not in the way that most storytellers currently are thinking. When they think like a demon, what they're thinking is, demons don't kill their minions in the night. They would never do that, so I'm not going to kill evil. That's the wrong way to go about it. We already went over why, but also, like, #kill your minions. When you're a demon, kill your minions. It'll help you a lot more than you think, even if you're not like a Vigor Mortis. I have won multiple games by simply killing minions in the night at key strategic points. The figuring out when the key strategic points is that's a skill that you can work on for sure. But #kill your minions. But also, what I mean by think like a demon here in terms of like your little monster kills is killing off the players who are trusted. Don't look at their roles. Don't look at what information they have. Don't like take that into factor as much as you take into account how trusted is this player. Because especially by the mid to late games, demons should not be caring about what roles players are. You should be caring about whether town trusts somebody or not, because that will determine whether you can frame that player or not. And an unframeable player is not worth bringing into the final just because they no longer have an active ability. Kill them.
Yeah, you see this a lot in Trouble Brewing, where, like, it's a Baron game, good has solved its Baron game, the Baron is doing its work of making less information available, and then, oops, it's the Demon, the Butler, and the Recluse in Final 3, because the Demon was focused on killing all the information roles before then, and it's just like, okay, well, one of these players isn't an outsider. They have to be the demon because we all know it's a Baron game. There's some value early to like sniping a powerful information role that has diminishing returns as the game goes on, and you need to start killing by trust eventually. And this gets into the storyteller kill issue is the storyteller always... even the best storytellers who are listening the most carefully don't have as good an idea of town's trust economy as the players who are making the trust call, who know who is trusted in private conversations. The storyteller can never be everywhere at once. The storyteller can never know everything about what every player is thinking. They can never perfectly mimic the actual trust economy of the players, and that's... I think it makes kills real tough in the endgame for storyteller-driven demons in a way that, even with the best storytellers, ends up slightly pro-good.
I can agree with that.
One question I want to ask, just going back slightly, you talked about kill agency. What are your thoughts on Little Monster, where potentially the storyteller might ask the evil team if you had a choice, who would you kill? Or things like, as a minion, going up to the storyteller and saying, please kill this player tonight. How do you feel about that? Certainly within Little Monster, but if you want to take this out to Yagababble or Oho, feel free.
I think it's definitely something the storyteller can take account of.
Yeah, I agree. I think that if you want to do that, that's fine. I think that can be a way to maybe help a player feel like they're having a little bit more agency in the game for something that they generally don't. And it's okay to do that sometimes, but keep in mind that you're not beholden to what the players would choose, right?
Oh, absolutely.
You're
yeah.
offering you're taking their opinion, but you as a storyteller do have more information. Like Emma said, you won't have perfect information about the game, and there will be things that the players actually do know and feel better than you as a storyteller for several reasons. But you still have more overall information than the evil team does, and especially in the early game, that makes you I don't want to say a better source of knowing who to kill exactly, but it makes you a more informed choice. And it's okay to take those things into account and occasionally decide this player is missing this key piece of information that, I heard these people talking about in a private chat. This player doesn't know that private chat happened, so they can't possibly know this. And therefore they're making, their thoughts are being formed without something that would actually drastically change it. So I'm not going to listen to that. I'm going to do this other thing because I know this piece of information. You don't need to feel bad for not listening, even if you've been proactive and asked them for their opinion, even if it was you going to them instead of them coming to you. Don't feel bad if you think that something else is better. Just go with what you think is the best choice. But it can be a nice way to help somebody feel a bit more included, especially people who already are predisposed to not liking having less agency. I don't personally mind roles that don't have a ton of player agency. I'm cool to just vibe and trust that the storyteller is going to make a decision that's good for my team with whatever it is that they have, or maybe not good for my team. Some things are balancing mechanisms. They're going to do what's good for the game. That's what I should say. With whatever my ability is, and I'm cool just vibing. But I understand that there's a lot of people who are drawn towards higher player agency than I might be, and that could be a way to maybe help keep them feel a little bit more engaged with a demon that maybe they're not predisposed to liking.
Of script building, I believe that Pixie should be considered a demonsbane character. First of all, what is demonsbane? Demonsbane is generally considered to be a character that the demon is disincentivized from killing. So using Trouble Brewing as an example, the demon wants to kill the fortune teller. The fortune teller will stop receiving information. It's considered a good kill in the mechanical sense. However, you don't want to kill the Raven Keeper, because then the Raven Keeper gets their information. The Raven Keeper is able to say, hey, I died in the night. I picked this player. I saw them as the imp. Let's kill them. So that's what we mean by a demonsbane. Now, if you read the Pixie ability, it says you start knowing one in play townsfolk. If you're mad that you are this character, you gain their ability when they die. None of that is demonsbane. However, I think the play pattern of the Pixie specifically means that it generally falls into a demonsbane character more than it does anything else. So, how do I mean by this? In a game where you have a Pixie who's seen, for example, let's say the fortune teller. and you're the demon, and you've got 2 players claiming fortune teller. The issue of the demon here is if they kill the fortune teller, then the pixie gains their ability. The benefit of killing the fortune teller has been removed because now there's a fortune teller number 2, which is not great. If they kill the pixie, now the pixie has no reason to adhere to madness and is therefore free to break that madness and is able to say, I learned there was a fortune teller in play, which is equivalent to, in my opinion, the Raven Keeper dying at night and going, oh, I saw this player as the fortune teller. It's a slightly different way to receive the information, but I think that it still falls into that pattern of being a demon's bane. Also, how do demons deal with demon's bane? Well, the way you deal with a demon bane, like the Raven Keeper, is either through poisoning it or through getting it executed. It's the exact same for the pixie. I think that if town kills one of either the fortune teller or the pixie fortune teller, the demon is now free to kill the other one without consequence. That execution is the same as executing a Raven Keeper. Likewise, poisoning, the demon can choose or collaborate with their poisoner to pick one of the players and kill the other one in the hopes that one is the pixie, the poison player is the pixie, the other player is the fortune teller, and that the pixie won't gain their ability because they're poisoned when the fortune teller dies. So I think that it should be considered a demon's bane, which it doesn't. I'm aware it doesn't from the outset look like it is a demon's bane, but I think the most common play pattern where players rigidly stick to the madness encourages it to fulfill a demon bane character.
I had never thought of it like that before, but I think you're right.
I think within the standard understanding of what demon bane characters do, you're right as far as it goes. I have feelings about, from the strict perspective, is a demon bane is a character the demon doesn't want to kill. I would say there is Sage and Soldier, and I don't know if there's any other demon bane character. But I think within, like, it's doing a similar thing to what the Raven Keeper is doing, and I will agree about that.
I'm interested to hear why you think that Sage and Soldier are the only demon bane.
I think Raven Keeper is a curious character that... Right, taking a step back, there's been a lot of academic study of Blood on the Clocktower's ancestral game, Mafia. And one of the interesting findings of Mafia academic research is that you can correctly balance a bag of vanilla Mafia, that is, have the right number of Mafia for your total number of players, such that, and this is a game, remind you, with no information and assumes that a good player is killed every night. That is mathematically balanced in the sense that it assumes that good has no way to determine who's good and evil, and executions are random. Actual play of live in-person Mafia shows that with a mathematically balanced bag, good wins a truly insane amount of the time. And this has been something that's been observed since the creation of Mafia. It's something the original creator of Mafia observed, and he has his own theories about why this is true. And I don't need to distract us by getting into those, but the general sense is Mafia, with its complete lack of information, its complete lack of anything, is a wildly good favored game. Blood on the Clocktower, on the other hand, is full of information, which seems like it should create an even more good favored game. But notably, it doesn't. Blood on the Clocktower creates a game where evil wins about half the time. And I think, like, there's lots of reasons for this. One is that the combination of information and misinformation distracts the good team players from whatever it is about basic human nature that makes them good at solving Mafia games without any information. And that brings so I think information is secretly a pro-evil mechanic. I also think Blood on the Clocktower has characters like the Raven Keeper, which, by encouraging Raven Keepers to destroy their social trust in the hopes of getting killed by lying about what they are, helps the evil team. I think, like, Raven Keeper, if played face up, is a terrifying problem for the evil team, because it's a ticking time bomb for them. If the Raven Keeper is honest and seems honest to the other players and gets cleared by information and is alive when the demon has to make their kill going into Final 3, the demon is in a real bad spot. Because presumably, even if they've done well and the other two living players are good frames, like, they have a choice of either killing one of their frames and being forced to bring this confirmed Raven Keeper alive, or they're forced to kill the Raven Keeper and risk the Raven Keeper solving the game. Both of which are bad options. I think, like, for the evil team, it's frequently better to kill Raven Keepers extremely quickly and with prejudice. And I think that's semi-true of Farmer too. Like, I'd rather know about a farmer problem early in the game than end up in a situation where I kill a farmer going into Final 3.
Right, and then one of the frames turns into the farmer and you don't know to double claim it, and yeah, that can be a problem.
Yeah. Like, so, like, the only things that really scare me off from killing them as a demon are the soldier, because tempo is extremely important in Blood on the Clock Tower for evil, and the sage, because the sage is actually just busted information, especially if it doesn't have a Vortox there. And even with the Vortox, it tends to be pretty busted information.
Sage needs Vortox.
It's okay. It's got a recluse drinks now.
You're right, it does.
So, like, ultimately, if I kill a Ravenkeeper night 1 and they confirm one player, and then I kill that confirmed player night 2, it's not the end of the world for me as evil. Like, I don't care about this. I'm, in fact, pretty excited. I don't have to risk the Ravenkeeper becoming trusted and me being forced to kill them later when they only have 3 people worth picking. So, like, in that sense, as an evil player, I frequently am trying to kill a Ravenkeeper early, when they can do the least possible damage to me.
I think it's definitely fair to feel that way, but I think it might be more accurate to describe the demonsbane roles as essentially having like different levels of severity should the demon target them. Because certainly, I think we've all been in games where we've seen Ravenkeeper do damage even in the early game, more so in the late game, probably, yeah. But that doesn't mean that like the majority of the community feels kind of a bit of afraid of killing a Ravenkeeper, and so they would rather take the tactic of either poison killing them or like framing them to get them executed. So like it's still an overall demonsbane character, even if it might be a less egregious example than a sage, for example. So like I think we can just classify them. They're all demonsbanes, but some of them are just more hurtful to hit than others, and that's okay.
Yeah, I definitely agree that's what the majority of the community thinks of the Ravenkeeper. I just think they happen to be wrong. I think the Ravenkeeper is an ideal night 2 kill. It's the one you should be looking for most of the time on Trouble Brewing.
I will tell you that if you kill people who openly claim Ravenkeeper, a lot of times you're hitting a very strong and powerful information roll. So a lot of times you're not even killing a Ravenkeeper.
You don't kill the person who tells you they're the Ravenkeeper. They're probably the fortune teller lying, and you want to keep them around so you can poison them later.
This is my personal opinion on TB, is that Ravenkeepers should claim soldiers and soldiers should claim to be Ravenkeepers. Because I think it falls into that trap of if the player's claimed Ravenkeeper, they're the fortune teller. And then when they attack you, it's that tempo that you mentioned. They now don't have that.
Yeah. So, like, I think Pixie, if you like a Night 2 Pixie kill, I think does do the exact same thing as your ideal outcome for a Night 2 Ravenkeeper kill is now you've learned a confirmed player who you know you need to kill Night 3.
Or poison.
Which is great for me. I love knowing who I need to kill Night 3.
I love knowing who I need to poison.
Poisoning them is also fun if it's something worth poisoning. But like, I like the getting the Pixie killed early, so I know who I have to like poison to sell their information or kill because I can't poison them and they're confirmed. That is chef's kiss for me. So in that sense, I think it's a lot like the Ravenkeeper, and much like the Ravenkeeper, I love killing the Pixie Knight too.
I just said that to bring this back around to my fun fact because Poisoner's my favorite character. I'm just bringing the podcast full circle.
So, like, I agree that Pixie is very similar to Ravenkeeper in that I would be very annoyed if I killed a Pixie in going into Final Four and realized that one of the players I was framing was now confirmed by the dead Pixie, and very happy if I killed the Pixie Night 2 and then learned something who was a juicy poison target and or unframable and needed to die at some point.
I think it's worth keeping in mind, though, for Pixie that, like, if you're leaving a Pixie alive in the late game, yes, they may have gained the ability and they may have information off of that as a result, but, like, it's important to keep in mind that the player that the Pixie is confirming is more confirmed than the Pixie themselves. That's a social thing that you would need to keep your eye on as the demon player in a game, right? Is like, how socially trusted is the Pixie that they are in fact the Pixie and gained the ability when they did. Can I viably make it seem like this is just like, for example, a minion who started in a double bluff who realized that they could back into Pixie, or a demon who got a Pixie as a bluff and therefore just claimed whatever they wanted? There might be games where the answer to that is yes, and you can definitely keep them alive and frame them. And I think you can almost do that maybe a little easier than you can with a Raven Keeper sometimes because of like certain play patterns, but it might just depend on the player more so than anything else. But you don't always have to like kill your Pixie going into a late game who's confirming or is confirmed. Like they're less confirmed than the player that they're claiming to have seen.
Yeah, which is why on Final Four it's really bad if you kill the Pixie because you were thought that you were framing the other one you thought was the Pixie, and now the Pixie's dead and they're confirming your frame. It's just a disaster. Get rid of that on night 2. Just like the Raven Keeper.
That's true. If you don't have a good read on which one is the real one and which one is the Pixie, and you accidentally kill the Pixie, rip. I think that Pixie is a fun character, more fun than Washerwoman.
It's a very fun character. It's one of the most fun characters in Clock Tower, precisely because I think the good player has a lot of variability, and the Pixie has a lot of variability in how they approach it, and I think that creates fun.
I also think more Pixies should just not claim the character they saw day one. I feel like very often, certainly within the groups I play, you will have that experience of like, oh, you've been claiming to be the fortune teller since the start of the game, but you only started claiming fortune teller from day 3. Therefore, we think that you're the fortune teller because you weren't claiming it to start with. So if you're the Pixie, you would be breaking madness. So the player claiming it from the start must be the Pixie or bluffing Pixie. And I think that a lot more people should just don't claim to be the fortune teller day 1 so that you don't fall into the play pattern of the Pixie, if that makes sense, or the intended play pattern.
It does, yeah. It's a little bit more risk because if your target dies early, you are not going
absolutely.
to gain your ability
Yeah.
because you weren't mad. But I also think that the reward is probably better.
Yeah, like Pixie explicitly can recover their madness even if they've lost it at some point. There's a semi-official madness guide written by Mr. Medway that is expressly about the Pixie, and it expressly says, like, just because you weren't claiming your target roll on day 1 or day 2 doesn't mean you can't pivot into your target roll on day 3, then gain the ability night 4. So yes, you have lots of choices as a Pixie.
I think I agree that maybe more players should play it that way. I think that a lot of people they get nervous, like, oh, I'm never going to get my ability if I don't do this now, so I better do this now just in case they die night 2. But sometimes it's okay to end up just being a confirmatory role. As the Pixie. I've actually had games where I've just outed as Pixie because like the role that I saw, I was like, I don't really care about gaining that ability. I just want to confirm the player who has it. And that's a fine way to play it too. So if you don't claim it and you don't get your ability when they died night 2, no big deal. Confirm the information that they already have.
Yeah, I will say the one time I remember doing this, I was the Pixie that saw Balloonist. The Balloonist died night 2, so there wasn't any information to confirm.
You were confirming a player was in the game. All right.
Double confirmed, basically.
Risk and reward. Risk and reward. It's all good.